It all started like any ordinary airport delay. Nothing loud, no alarms, no frantic rushing or flashing red lights. Just a small pause at the customs desk, a quiet moment where something didn't line up. August 17th, 1999, Montreal Trudeau International Airport. A calm, cloudy afternoon. A man steps off a flight from Munich. He looks exactly like the kind of person you forget 5 minutes after seeing. Mid-40s, average height, neatly groomed beard, a gray suit with a faint pinstripe, and polished black shoes. He carries a brown leather briefcase, worn but clean, with a brass buckle that glints in the fluorescent light. Everything about him seems in order. He doesn't fidget, doesn't seem tired or anxious. Just moves with the relaxed confidence of a man who's traveled more times than he can count. He waits in line behind a family with loud kids, checks his watch once, and gives a small nod to the agent when it's his turn. Nothing about him stands out. Then he hands over his passport. The document looks normal at first glance. Navy blue with a gold emblem in the center. But something about it makes the customs officer pause. The emblem isn't familiar. A golden sun rising between two narrow black towers surrounded by sharp, curling symbols that don't belong to any known language group. They almost look Slavic, or maybe a stylized version of Old Norse. The officer flips open the passport, expecting some kind of niche microstate or obscure island country. The inner pages look completely legit. There's a faint texture in the paper that catches under his thumb. The ink doesn't smudge. The security thread glows properly under the UV lamp. And the man's photo matches exactly. Same calm eyes, same slight smile. He seems entirely at ease. No sign of hesitation. But the country printed at the top of the page? Lirvania. The officer furrows his brow. He's worked at customs for over a decade. He's seen passports from almost every country you can think of, and plenty you probably can't. But Lirvania, it's not familiar, not even a little. He leans forward slightly, scanning for errors. The man waits quietly, hands resting on his briefcase, not saying a word. The officer tries to pull up Lirvania in the system. No results. Not a mismatch, not a formatting issue, just nothing. It doesn't exist, not on any travel list, not in the ICAO database, not in the embassy register. It's like the country was invented, but the passport is flawless. Trying not to raise alarm, the officer casually asks, "Where are you from, sir?" The man replies with a slight smile and says, "Lirvania." Capital city, Talga. His voice is soft, steady, no accent the officer can place. Maybe Eastern European, but not quite. The man speaks as if that answer should make everything clear, as if Talga is a place every child learns in school. When the officer doesn't respond right away, the man raises his eyebrows slightly and adds, "It borders Latvia, north of Belarus, a few hours from the Baltic coast. I'm surprised you haven't heard of it." But the officer has never heard of it. Not Talga, not Lirvania, not that sun and tower emblem. And yet, here this man is, standing in front of him with a full travel document, calm and confident, as if nothing is out of place. The officer tries to remain professional, but something feels off. Not dangerous, just wrong. In that deep, gut-level way you can't explain. Like something you see in a dream that doesn't belong in the waking world. Still unsure what to make of it, the customs officer quickly flagged a supervisor to take a closer look. They carefully scanned the passport's embedded chip using multiple devices, hoping for some clarity, but all they got was silence. No error messages, no warnings, just complete emptiness. It was as if the chip was physically there, perfectly intact, but contained absolutely no data at all. The more they checked and rechecked, the more baffled they became. The visa inside the passport was formatted exactly as it should be. The font, spacing, holograms, and official stamps all matched the style and standards of real government documents they'd seen 1,000 times before. Yet despite all this, there was still no record of the country anywhere in the official databases or international registries. When they asked the man about the purpose of his trip, he simply smiled with quiet confidence and explained that he was visiting for a trade conference. To back up his claim, he showed them a full itinerary, cleanly typed, professionally printed, and laminated for protection. It detailed a business hotel in the heart of the city and a major conference on trade policy scheduled for that weekend. The hotel itself was real and well-known, and the conference was confirmed as an actual event. But strangely, no one at the hotel had any record of him booking a room. No one at the conference had seen or registered him, and there was no trace of his company or the country he claimed to represent anywhere. Security decided to take him into a private interrogation room for more questions. He didn't resist at all. In fact, he walked calmly, with an air of quiet confidence, like someone who knew exactly why he was there and wasn't worried in the slightest. Once inside, he sat down at the table without hesitation, folded his hands neatly, and began answering every question in detail, never once losing his composure. He introduced himself as Markus Adek Halgren, a man who claimed to work in trade for the government of Lirvania. His job, he said, was to help small manufacturers from his country promote their products overseas. To back this up, he pulled out more forms of identification: a driver's license issued by Lirvania, a silver debit card embossed with a mysterious moth symbol, and a business card from a company called Halgren Glass Consolidated. Every one of these looked completely official, as if they had come straight from a legitimate government office or corporate headquarters. The designs were intricate and carefully made, showing clear signs of professional printing. But when the officers tried calling the phone numbers printed on the cards, nothing worked. The area codes didn't match anything known in North America or Europe, and the languages on the cards were strange and unfamiliar. The driver's license had letters that looked somewhat familiar, similar to Latin or Cyrillic alphabets, but arranged in patterns that didn't make sense in any real language. Despite all this, Halgren remained perfectly calm, answering questions patiently, never showing irritation or confusion. As the night went on, the story he told grew only stranger. He described his country, Lirvania, in vivid detail, talking about a population of around 12 million people, its main industries and exports, which included glass products, forest materials, and engineered wood. He spoke of the nation's history and culture with a deep sense of pride, mentioning Queen Halda, the monarch who, according to him, had survived a failed assassination attempt back in 1962. He also told them about a conflict called the Gulf Rail Conflict that took place in 1948, in which Lirvania supposedly fought off a blockade imposed by an alliance known as the Eastern Union, something he believed the Canadian authorities would be familiar with. But none of these events existed in any official history books or government records. There was no mention of Queen Halda anywhere, and the war he described was completely unknown. Yet through it all, Halgren's tone remained steady and sincere. He didn't seem to be inventing these stories or lying to cover anything up. To him, these were facts, memories of a life and a country that felt entirely real. At one point, he asked if the officers could contact the Lirvanian embassy in Berlin. When they told him that no such embassy existed because Lirvania itself was not recognized, he frowned, but not in disbelief. It was a quiet, thoughtful frown, like someone noticing that something was deeply wrong with the world he had landed in, rather than with his own story. He glanced at the wall clock and quietly remarked, "Your time format is backwards." Later, when he was escorted to use the restroom, he stared intently at the toilet for a long moment and muttered, "This design is all wrong. Ours are recessed." He asked the guard why everything smelled so strongly of chlorine and why there were cameras watching every corner. He wasn't scared or panicked, just confused. It was as if he had landed somewhere that looked familiar on the surface, but where all the small details were subtly, unsettlingly wrong. Like stepping into a mirror world, close to the one he knew, but just out of sync. They kept him overnight in a small, locked room under constant watch. The room had no windows, just 4 plain walls and 1 sturdy metal door, locked securely from the outside. A single security camera was mounted in the corner, silently recording everything. For hours, Halgren sat quietly at a plain metal table in the middle of the room. He barely moved. His hands were folded neatly in front of him, and his eyes stared straight ahead, calm and unfazed. Then, at exactly 2:41 a.m., something strange happened. The camera footage showed a sudden flicker, like a glitch in a broken video file. 1 frame skipped completely. The screen went black for a fraction of a second, and when the picture came back, the chair where Halgren had been sitting was completely empty. Just like that. No noise, no sudden movements, no signs of struggle or forced exit. The door was still locked tight. The guards outside heard nothing, saw nothing. No one entered or left the room. It was as if Halgren had vanished into thin air. But the oddities didn't stop there. When the security team reviewed the footage, they noticed something impossible. The video file had been renamed automatically by the system. Instead of showing the current date and time, the timestamp read 1983, 16 years before the actual night it was recorded. No one could explain how this happened or why the system would suddenly backdate the file by so many years. Even stranger, whenever they tried to copy the video to another drive or share it with other investigators, the file would become corrupted instantly. Uploading it to a secure government server resulted in the video deleting itself within seconds, gone without a trace. The only thing left was a single still image, the empty chair, the silent room, the wrong date stamped at the bottom. Meanwhile, everything Halgren had brought with him, the leather briefcase, the passports, the strange foreign currency, the business cards, remained untouched on the table. No signs that anyone had taken or moved any of it. But Markus Adek Halgren himself was gone, vanished without explanation, forever lost. Years passed. The story leaked out in bits and pieces, first whispered on online forums, then retold on podcasts covering strange and unexplained events. Some believed he was a time traveler who slipped through the cracks of reality. Others thought he had accidentally crossed from a parallel dimension, landing in this world by mistake, only to disappear again just as mysteriously. Theories multiplied, but no proof ever surfaced. Then in 2023, someone stumbled on a curious discovery. An old globe, dusty and cracked with age, was bought at a yard sale in Ottawa. The globe looked ordinary, except for one detail. Right along the edge of the Baltic Sea, nestled between Latvia and Russia, was a narrow country labeled Lirvania. The lettering matched the rest of the map perfectly. No signs of tampering, no ink smudges, no uneven aging. It looked like it had been printed decades ago, at the same time as the globe itself. And carved carefully into the bottom of the wooden stand was a small, shaky inscription that read, "Everywhere exists, just not at the same time."